Hello again, my best beloveds, and welcome to St. John's. I am the Reverend Mitra Jafarzadeh, and there is so much going on in church, even though we are not able to meet in person. And this week I thought I would take some time and introduce you to some of those things that are happening. And I thought I'd start with a poem. We have a group that meets on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m. for a little bit of reflection and morning meditation. And someone brought this poem by Joy Harjo to the group. The title of the poem is Remembering, the title of the poem is Remember. And I like it so much that I wanted to be able to share it with you. I encourage you to look this up and read it for yourself and hold it close to your own heart and your own soul. Here it goes. This is Joy Harjo's poem, Remember. She writes, "Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon, know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point in time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origins of the universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are in this universe and this universe is in you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is. Life is. Remember. Now, I've got to be honest, I love that poem. For me, for my theology, this poem is everything. I said to the morning meditation group that I would like to write it on the walls of my house so that I could live inside of those words. Remembering is a life-giving word. It is a Frankenstein word in the best possible sense. It is a lightning strike word, a word that calls separate parts together, separate times together, into a new whole. It remembers us towards a wholeness, which is shalom, which is reconciliation, which is peace, which is life itself. It is a very good word, a word we can hold on to while we are apart until we are able to be together again. Now, something else happened since the last time we spoke. One of our Thursday theology discussions went down an absolute rabbit hole of post-structuralism, the big question of who has the right to define theology and belief as valid, the bigger question of who we are. Are we a tradition as Unitarian Universalists where anything goes, where all truths are equally true, where you can believe whatever you want? Throw in some literary theory, a bit of postmodern investigation of who is the author of truth and whose truth is truer, and etc., and so on and so forth, and eventually it just makes my brain hurt. If you want to join in that kind of conversation, we meet on Thursday evenings at 7, and just email programming at St. John's UU, and we will get you signed up for that. It was a lot to think about, but something else happened also, and I can't quite shake this, and I don't quite know what to do with it. We are living right in the point in time between the 50th anniversary of the Kent State shooting and the Jackson State shooting. Many of us have heard of the Kent State massacre, but not the similar killings at Jackson State College in Mississippi. This has everything to do with how we remember our history. It has everything to do with who gets to be the author of that history, who shares the story, and what type of lens they view the world through. Because if we're not attentive, their lens will become our lens. The way we receive the history of police and National Guard killing unarmed civilians is formed by racism. The stories themselves, the actual events, are also formed by racism, but here I want to focus on the way we tell the story, who is in, who is out. Because how we remember has everything to do with how we move towards shalom. And I'm using that word, that particular word, shalom, here because it is my shorthand, meaning peace through wholeness, healing through completion. You might prefer to think about how we call creation together as calling creation into beloved community, or the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of God. There are surely slight but meaningful differences in the words we use. Some of those differences are objective, and some of them are subjective. They're the differences we bring to our understanding through the lives that we have lived, through our own experiences. For me, using kingdom of God doesn't really work. It implies too many assumptions that I just bristle against. Kingdom of God sounds like patriarchy or monarchy, sounds like a power structure that I don't like, sounds like a God as a personified real estate investor that just doesn't do it for me. But for some of you, I have every confidence that kingdom of God has nothing but positive associations. Maybe it's how you learn to think about a loving God as a child, kingdom of God as a place where everything is well and all is reconciled. Maybe kingdom of God is the phrase you chose to construct intentionally as an adult, putting together your own theology. And for you, it has meaning and richness that I can't understand, that I can't personally approach. And this matters because it is never my job to tell you that that is a wrong image for you. I can invite you into conversation. You can invite me into conversation. But the words we use, the way we do theology individually, that's a personal choice. It's a personal relationship between us and what there is of the divine. No preacher, no pastor should stand in between that. It's only our job to support, encourage, and help you find what you need to nurture. In this way, all truths are valid and equal. But then I get to thinking about the stories of the shootings at Kent State and in Jackson. And I think about the people who were killed there and all the different narratives, all the different stories that fly around. The people who were killed at both of those shootings were people like you and like me, who were shot dead by other people who were like you and like me. They were people who had taken an oath as members of the police or National Guard. Those oaths those promises surely had something to do with protecting and serving citizens, but also had something to do with our core ideas of what it means to be America. We shortchange the hope of shalom if we do not tell as much of the story as we can, if we do not invite the people who had direct experience to share their stories so that we can have the blessing of being able to listen and take in those stories even though we weren't there. It is a blessing to be able to bear witness to the sacred truth of other people. And we have to respect that that is their truth. And together, all those stories move us towards wholeness, move us towards shalom. If we fracture our understanding of truth out to each individual storyteller, I fear that oaths of office, higher ideals, even the ethical structures which undergird law will also be fractured. So, getting back to the work that we have to do as a faith community and thinking about how we remember ourselves, there are some things that we must hold near and dear to our heart. First, we must know that theology always happens in a context of culture and history and is mitigated through personal experience. I'm going to say that again because this is like really important stuff to me. I think this is the baseline for understanding religions of the world, for understanding yourself and other people. So here it goes. Religion happens in a context of culture and history and is mitigated through personal experience. Okay. Second, we need to know that wholeness is not possible without including everyone. And by everyone, I mean like everyone. Everyone is included. And if you have doubts about that, just look to the very name of this church and our inheritance. We are Unitarian Universalists. That Universalist says everyone is beloved. Everyone is included. Third, cultivating a sympathetic imagination, or if you prefer, compassion, or a wide and readily available grace. Call it what you will. Whatever you call that, sympathetic imagination, grace, or compassion, is necessary spiritual work for healing a broken world. Fourth, the stories of yesterday, the stories that we inherit, are with us today. And history does not let us go without our own acts of rebellion. History is not going to let us go without us consciously, intentionally deciding that we want something else, that we want a new way of seeing and doing and being in this world. And I suppose I should say this. If we're talking about upending power structures that are dysfunctional, it is not enough to keep the same structure and replace the players. If you want to change the system, you have to live into a different way of being. That is the call of the covenantal church, to live into a different way of being. Because without choosing to do that and practicing doing that, we will be stuck in the same cycles that reinforce power structures that do not serve our better natures. February of this year, it wasn't that long ago, and at the same time was quite a while ago. In February, 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed while he was out jogging. Race and power and assumptions and connections of who knows who all come into play. It is not okay to say that all stories are equal here. So let me say this again. It is not okay to say that all stories are equal when you have a system that is built on racist assumptions and power structures, a system that leaves a 25-year-old jogger dead. We cannot pretend like all stories are equally valid and true, because to do that makes a mockery of justice and makes life cheap. That is not acceptable. Moreover, to say that all truths are equal suggests that we were never players in constructing the dysfunctions of this system. And if we don't take responsibility for the dysfunctional system, how can we reclaim the power to recreate, to remember a system where justice is common, where people are treated fairly, where life is valued? I absolutely believe we have the power to do that. We have the power to live better, to do better. But that power has to be built on an honest look at history and an unwillingness to excuse profoundly dysfunctional systems and ways of being. How then do we remember who we are and whose we are? Well, I can't honestly say I have exactly the right answer, but I suspect it has to do with knowing our own stories and respecting each other's stories. I suspect it has to do with having faith that some things, and I mean really big things, like love and justice and grace, some of those things are larger than any one of us can contain. Therefore, for the sake of wholeness, we remember everyone. Our small truths inevitably leave someone out, but the big truths hold the whole world and everyone in it, even imperfect people like me and like you. So remember, there is a place for all of us, and each and every one of us are needed. Anytime you can, any way you can, try to draw that circle a little bit bigger. Until we can be together again, my friends, be well.